Hi, Linton Herbert again. It's the 1st of March 2020, and we're continuing about the pestilence that is sweeping the world. This continues the show I just did. Um, and so far we've suspected that the virus was released by extraterrestrials, and they were they were basically pushed along because I had posted information about how to restore fertility, that they'd been for a long time using outbreeding infertility um, to drive us to extinction. And then when I posted something on a federal site that they were monitoring, they immediately released the virus, which they obviously already had. So, given the virus and given the planned time of release, they were rushed by me. Where would they release it? The great tennis champ Bill Tilden said, a little boastfully maybe in his book, the usual strategy in tennis is size up your opponent early in the match. You simply essentially memorize every stroke, figure out where the opponent was weakest on that day. And there are lots of ways to hit a tennis ball: high, low, fast, slow, deep, short, forehand, backhand, the dreaded lobbing into the sun, and so forth. Once the weakness is known, you exploit it. But Tilden instead would hammer on the strength of his opponent, because once that broke, the opponent had nothing to fall back on. Well, good for him. I just used to try not to get hit by the ball when playing tennis. Instead of the savage game of lawn tennis, I speak of the gentlemanly round of interplanetary warfare. Same strategy would apply. Hit them where they are strongest. For the Earth, at this time, that means destroy one of the two fairly well-matched superpowers, China and U.S. Both have enormous resources. The U.S. still has a lingering dusting of Scotch-Irish, who have an ancient social order and a flair for independence. If you're fighting 40 Scotch-Irish, you're fighting 40 minds. In other cultures, you'd be fighting the mind of one officer. Also, the Scotch-Irish are big and strong. But one-on-one, the Chinese score higher on an IQ test. For an illegal extraterrestrial, there's not that much to choose. On the other hand, China has a highly centralized government, a command government. Suppose the release had been in the U.S., reducing it to the shambles now reported in China. The Chinese would slam the border closed and make it stick. Repatriating citizens from cruise ships? Forget it. So the enemy would be facing a comparable power that was now forewarned. So the release would be in China. But where in China? Right next to their highest level germ lab would be the obvious choice. Then we could have a lot of futile bickering. They were being cute. Our hypothesis of a disease concocted by non-humans for our destruction consists with a lot of things that appear otherwise happenstance. President Reagan once or twice remarked wistfully that an outside threat to the world would mean we would immediately settle our differences so he could confront it. I don't see that actually happening. But there's a little hint. There's a conspiracy of silence. The numbers out of China are regularly said to be false or wrong. One day, they reported the number of cases in the province that contains Wuhan, and in Wuhan itself, and there were more cases in Wuhan than the whole province that contains Wuhan. Obviously, that can't be true, and while the U.S. was only admitting to 16 cases, they went to transfer cases from a military base to a small town. Town sued to block it, and there were 20 patients involved. Not much but to choose between China and the U.S. on that score, it seems to me. I got this on HuffPost. The U.S. has announced that since China was not being open about things, listen carefully, since China's not being open, the U.S. would use their spy network to investigate. I'm developing a jumping jeep in one secret location and a burrowing mine in another. You tell the world about that burrowing mine project, and it's underway along with pictures and specifications. I'm going to send my counter spies to the mine lab in preference to the Jeep lab. That means whatever the public's, whatever the public servants learn in China will not be told us. And we're doing that because China was being secretive. Yeah, right. What can you do? Survive. You can survive. You need to do some prepping. For instance, get an ice chest, toss in a couple 20-pound sacks of rice, and top it up with as many bags of beans as it'll hold. Get dozens of cans of nutritious food that you like. Kind of break the boredom of eating rice every meal. Load up as many gallons of drinking water as you can. If you don't have access to rough water, put buckets out to catch rain. Paper towels be nice. Rag will do the same job generally. Toilet paper is nice. Washcloth and rough water will do the job. If the water is out, you can flush the toilet by pouring in a bucket of water. Have a drinking water filter and a solar stove. Lots of warm clothes if you live where it freezes. Solar charger for your phone or radio. Vitamin D is nice, according to Dr. Campbell, if you live far to the north. A deficiency can lower your immune system. If medicine is an issue, talk to your doctor, figure something out. I'm no expert on some such things, so please comb the internet to get more informed advice. The Peak Prosperity site I mentioned above might be willing to offer advice from a more credible source. Of course, most of the stuff you're going to buy anyway, you'll be one less person competing out there if there's a run on the market. And you'd rather go now before the thing shows up than get into crowding into grocery stores after it's among us. You'll be one less person competing if there's a run on the grocery store, and the shop owner should be happy since he's selling the same amount just a little early. All right, doom and gloom time. The next thing our beloved extraterrestrials would do is tweak the virus so that after a period of symptoms it would vanish. Symptoms would resolve and later it would reemerge in the same patient. The word for this is relapse. Never heard in all my wallows, my Wuhan wallowing, I've never heard that word. Of course, the implication is hideous. It means that nobody ever recovers. There is a suggestion that the routine quarantine of 2 weeks is not sufficient. Personally, I think the original meaning of quarantine, 40, referring to a ship coming into harbor being denied entry to the town until it had gone 48 days without plague. That's where the word quarantine comes from. Still, the plague, despite even that, destroyed much of the world. There is a single case of somebody being exposed to the virus and not developing the disease for 4 weeks. I mean, the incubation may be that long, but it's just one case, can be dismissed. The critical question upon which our survival may depend is whether the virus can survive in the body after clinical recovery. And it's pretty clear that's possible. In other words, yeah, they relapse, the bug's still there, even though the throat swab and fever say things are fine. I was delighted to learn the Lancet had published a paper describing an autopsy on a victim or patient um, who had died of the virus. Now, the word lancet means a small blade, and among the medical fraternity, it's obvious that it refers to bloodletting. And the journal's name reflects joy in its anachronism and asserts that its roots go very far back. There is one high status. This is one high status journal. I had high hopes they would reflect competent work in the published article. They reported lung damage, including flooded air spaces, inflammatory cells, cells that had died, and cells that had fallen out of place. I don't remember blood clots in the pulmonary blood vessels, and I don't care. What I expected was they would biopsy every tissue. I've done a lot of autopsies, but generally didn't take biopsies of every tissue, maybe muscle. These bits of tissue were then placed in formaldehyde so as to be ready to be prepared for microscopic review. I've done a lot of biopsies when I did autopsies. All right. Now you look at it under the microscope. Once they had generous biopsies, they needed to grind up and subject them to quantitative culture for the virus. It might be lurking in the CSF, it might be in the aqueous humor. Somebody said that's a fluid in the frontmost part of the eyeball. Somebody said Ebola could survive there. I think it was Florida Maquis. It may be in the spleen, which is a filter for blood, contains a lot of inflammatory cells. Think of it as a giant lymph node. It might be in a heart. There are reports of the virus doing heart damage. No points for removing the heart in hopes of effecting a cure. You might want to remove the spleen if it turns out that's where they're all hiding. No cultures reported. Evidently, the study was done by a mental lightweight who simply did the same autopsy he did every time and did not think about what information was needed. Well, there will unfortunately be more chances at autopsies, and I hope somebody biopsies every tissue and cultures it and tells us where the virus might be hiding. It's probably just everywhere. They don't say relapse, they say reinfection. That means either the virus mutates so much that the immune system does not recognize it, or the immunity is basically inadequate. If anything's going on to provide immunity, it's the disease itself. So don't expect a vaccine anytime soon. One time a vaccine for SARS was attempted. They took some ferrets and mice, gave them a dead virus, watched and then challenged them with the real virus. They did worse than if they had any vaccine. So yes, expect either relapse or reinfection to be worse after the first round. One for the bug-eyed monsters. I've never told you there are 10 cases for reinfections, what not widely mentioned. I can't swear to it. All right, boost your immune system. Right, it's the immune system that kills you in this disease. It floods your lung with inflammatory stuff. You can improve your chances by avoiding people wipe down any surface someone else may have touched. Soap, paper, and ethyl alcohol isopropyl is said not to work. Bleach is irritating. Wash your hands with hot soapy water for 20 seconds after coming in from where people have been. Don't touch your face until your hands are clean. Wear a mask. Masks are not highly regarded. My experience is the air goes around them. I used to do radiologic procedures using a mask and wearing glasses if the going got tough, I would sigh and the glasses would fog up. Somebody showed pictures of nurses who had cared for COVID victims. Their faces were permanently disfigured by mask pressure. That's what it takes. Heroines they are. Another generally futile gesture. Screening for fever. Instrument reporting the forehead. All the screening is done at airports. Not one unsuspected case has ever shown up. Don't know the name of the authority, but one British fellow said this, and it's too good to resist. I may repeat it sometimes. Screening for fever in this situation like repairing 3 out of 5 screen doors on your submarine. All right, what to do? I'm a pacifist, but it's too late for that. Much as it is probably too late to contain the virus by quarantine, we are already at war. And that just happens to be our specialty. Since the sources are real, and that's been proven, there must be a base. Antarctica, the Moon, and Mars seem like the best bets. I'd dismiss time travel, interdimensional travel, travel by quantum uncertainty, and any other things that flies in the face of science and good sense. First, make sure that extraterrestrials are a reasonable guess. There are people who know more than I do. Next, scour Antarctica and anything that reduce anything that smacks of alien life to crushed ice. Sorry, I love penguins as much as you do, but they're mostly on the coast, and the monsters are unlikely to be occupying the whole coast. Too easy to get noticed. Send in the Marines, use ice-penetrating radar, blast down to any ice caves, check every hot spot, even if the geologists think they're probably volcanoes. If nothing turns up, chuck a few nukes in. If that does not bring them to the table, spend more money and give the moon the same treatment. No penguins would be killed in such an operation. If they haven't got in touch with us after that, it's time for a Mars expedition. Man travel to Mars beyond us, but we can drop payloads of scientific instruments. Nukes would be a lot easier. Surface of Mars is greater than the land surface of the Earth. No worries. We have a ridiculous number of nukes. If that doesn't work, we're probably doomed. Everybody will get the Raven and relapse until we're all gone. But outbreeding infertility was going to snuff us out anyway, unless by some miracle my word got out. At least we'll have been true to ourselves. One little chuckle: the globalist and the deep state and super rich are all the same people and are all as guilty as sin for any number of evil deeds. If the eternal Attorney General starts arresting them, they'll all have safe hidey holes where they can wait it out a few years until they can buy another president. The holes are probably in a reasonably small area since they want to socialize. And in a country that can and will protect them, they'll all have to go to China. If you want to follow, if I put any links in there, or you want to see a copy of the script, because obviously I'm reading this, go to nobabies.net. Nobabies is one word. Net is, it's not .com, it's .net. And when you go to there, you'll get something like this, right? Now you know you're at nobabies.net. Scroll down to where it says YouTube video script. I got that? Click on that. Now scroll to the bottom. And here is pestilence, everything down to Yes, this is the first um, the first talk ends there, and I will shortly be putting up another. It'll be movie 60, second of two parts, and you'll click on that one and get the one we just did. Okay, thanks for coming. If you care to share this and give it a thumbs up, if enough people share it, it may come to the attention of the appropriate authorities, and they'll take a look and know in the twinkling of an eye whether this is plausible. I mean, do they have a wrecked flying saucer to Area 51 or not? Is it all really fluff like they keep saying? Well, there were those things that the carrier fleet saw. Has that been resolved? Really? They'll know. If there are critters out there, it's time to give this some serious consideration, and I'll be throwing in some more. Take care. Have a grand day. Hope I haven't depressed you too much.